Hey besties, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is BLACSIREN and how are we doing today? Are we sad, happy? Let me know in the comments. Oh my god, I know, it's been a minute. I don't even know. How long has it been since the last Beauty and the Blade? I feel so bad, so guilty. And let me tell you, actually, let me walk you through why it took me this long to finish this Beauty and the Blade. Okay, so every time I tried to do my research on the Beauty and the Blade, then I was like, shit, I still haven't finished researching this case and writing my script about it. What am I supposed to do? Then I would do a Reddit story. Then the next week comes, I'll do the same. Then again and again and again. It's like a vicious circle. That's why I stopped making Beauty and the Blade because it just took me so much time to do the research. But finally, I was in a depressive episode. Okay, then I was like, you know what? I need to read some crime cases to actually reel it back in. Then yeah, I did. I finally did. It took me a while. But anyway, are we excited? I know I'm excited. I'm just gonna shut up and yolobo. Without further ado, let's get started. Imagine being born into a wealthy family, living in Beverly Hills, one of the priciest zip codes in the world. Many might consider, okay, this is a jackpot, right? It'll guarantee a privileged upbringing and having an affluent lifestyle. But unfortunately, this is far from reality for the Menendez brothers. On the night of August 20th, 1989, Lyle and Eric just returned from watching the movie Batman. As soon as they opened the door into the house, what confronted them was the sight of their parents drenched in blood, brutally murdered by someone. Immediately, Lyle picked up his phone, dialed 911, and he was sobbing hysterically. Couldn't even get his words out. Someone shot and killed my parents.
Beverly Hills emergency.
Yes, please. Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Let's talk about Jose Menendez. Jose Menendez was born to a rich family in Havana, Cuba, with two sisters, and his parents were celebrity athletes. His dad was a soccer player who also owned his accounting firm, and his mom was a swimmer who had been elected to the Cuba Sports Hall of Fame. But in 1959, due to a government ruling, the family lost everything. And just like that, he went from being the prince to pariah. And 1 year later, Jose left Cuba and moved to the United States. And Jose Menendez, he was a very ambitious person. He's a go-getter. Whatever he sets his mind to, he's gonna get it. He was a high achiever. He also got accepted for the athletic scholarship, but that amount was not enough for him to apply and go to Ivy League universities. That's why he went to the Southern Illinois University, and that's also where he met his future wife, Mary Louise Anderson, aka Kitty. So we're just gonna call her Kitty in today's video. Now, Kitty, she was born on October 14th, 1941 in Oak Lawn, Illinois. Her dad was a veteran who also owned his air conditioning and heating company, and her mom worked at the airport before the marriage, but they later got divorced. And Kitty was also an alumni from the same school that Jose went to. She also participated and won Miss Oaklawn Beauty Contest. That's how Jose saw this beautiful girl. He was like, okay, who is that beautiful girl? I'm gonna marry her one day. And one thing led to another. They started dating. By the time they decided to just tie the knot, surprisingly, both of their parents, they disagree of this marriage. Jose's parents didn't really like Kitty because Kitty was actually in fact 3 years older than Jose, and she came from a family of divorce. And Kitty's parents, they just wanted Kitty to marry to an American, not a foreigner. But despite all the disapproval from their parents, they still wanted to get married with or without their blessings. So they eloped and got married in New York in 1964. That is also when Jose just got graduated, and like I said before, he was a very ambitious person. He's a go-getter. He's very hardworking. He even passed the CPA exam, which is the abbreviation of a certified public accountant, and he became a very successful businessman in just a couple of years. In all of his workplaces, he was often credited as being diligent or highly intelligent, but almost everybody who had worked with or under or had done business with him, they all described him as a person who's very obnoxious, ruthless, arrogant, abrasive. These are not some positive words to describe a person. He was widely disliked. There's a saying when describing a successful female leader: the sound of her stilettos hitting the floor can make people feel intimidated. He's the male version of that. He's like a shark. So if you ever rubbed him in the wrong way, if you accidentally put 1 extra cube of sugar in his coffee, he will fire you on the spot. Just like that. Well, I guess one cannot truly attain success without being somewhat ruthless or burning few bridges, right? He was that stereotypical businessman. Kitty, on the other hand, she was working as an elementary school teacher until their son, Lyle Menendez, was born. And by the time she gave birth to their second son, Eric, the whole family moved from New York City to California. So they were initially living in Calabasas, but later Jose bought a mansion in Beverly Hills. Okay, so both of the areas, Calabasas and Beverly Hills, they were all considered only the top echelons can live there. All the Hollywood famous celebrities that you know, athletes, successful business moguls, like influencers. And if somebody tells you that they live in Calabasas or Beverly Hills, you would know, okay, this person got their shit together. So the mansion in Beverly Hills, which people call it the murder house because that's where the murder took its place. That mansion had 6 bedrooms, a tennis court, and a swimming pool. It was once owned by Elton John and Prince. Allegedly, Jose bought the mansion for a whopping $4.8 million. And mind you, this is in the 70s. $4.8 million in the 70s. This is absolutely bonkers, okay? Now, the house had a hard time reselling it after the murder took place, as we expected, right? But surprisingly, bitch, why is my palette shattered? Oh my god. But surprisingly, the house was rented out to a Saudi prince at the time for $50,000 a month. I don't know why he did that. I mean, am I surprised? Not really, because rich people are sick, you know, of all the houses that he can rent out in Beverly Hills, and it gotta be that murder house. It gotta be the Menendez house. I don't know why he did that, because I'm pretty sure the money is not the issue for him. But he still did it. Despite of it all, it seems like his gesture increased the market price a little. So the house was sold for $3.6 million in 1991, and it was last sold for $3.7 million in 2001. And in 2023, I think, the house appeared on the market again for an estimated value of $5 million. And I don't know who the current owner is, but if I was the current owner, I would probably just prefer to stay anonymous. Okay, now let's talk about the brothers. Lyle Menendez, he was born on January 10th, 1968. And Eric Menendez, he was born 2 years later on November the 27th. So growing up, Jose was very strict to the brothers. Expected the brothers to be very good at sports. He wanted them to be athletes, so he invested heavily in private tennis lessons, chess games, or other extracurriculums. He just wanted to pass the torch to the brothers because that's how he grew up. He grew up in a very athletic family. So he wanted the 2 brothers to just carry his legacy. So not only he was being very strict to the brothers, but also to the instructors that he hired to teach the brothers. And a lot of the coaches, they quit because they just couldn't stand Jose's authoritarian style. They were like, fuck this. No, you're a fucking asshole. I don't want to teach your kids no more. Bye. No matter how hard the boys tried to impress Jose, winning competitions, acing the games, it was never enough for him. He demanded excellence, perfection, and the two boys never heard the word like, great job, my son. I'm so proud of you, coming out of Jose's mouth. And instead, it's always the, what are you doing? Try harder. It's not enough. I'm so disappointed in you. Not only Jose was expecting the boys to be good at sports, but he also wanted the boys to be able to hold conversations like international politics. He will give them hour-long lectures by himself. And just by telling you all of this, I just feel suffocated. Like, what the fuck? I would bet all of my money on this, which is probably like $10 in my bank account. But anyway, kids who grew up in this type of environment, they would not have a healthy mentality, okay? And as the year went on, the cracks began to show. And one day the brothers started stealing. And some people might ask, okay, if they were born into a rich family, why would they steal? Here's the thing. Just because they were born with the silver spoon, they had an affluent lifestyle, living in the lavish mansion, wearing designer brands, having all the superficial stuff, that doesn't mean they had money. That doesn't mean the parents were giving them money. When rich people steal, sometimes it's not about the money. It could be a sign of rebellious, thrill-seeking, getting attention from their loved ones, or fulfill their fantasy of committing crimes. Because you know what? This is just my thought, okay? Because here's the thing. When poor kids steal and when they got caught, they will get sent into juvenile detention center. But when rich kids steal, instead they will get sent into mental health facility. Y'all see the difference here? It's almost like they knew they were above the law. Yeah, like, so what if I committed crimes? So like, what are you gonna do to me? Nothing. Nothing will happen to me. And one time, the two brothers got caught because they stole over $100,000 worth of items from their neighbors, and they got caught. And obviously, Jose was livid. And the reason why Jose was livid, not because they were stealing, but because they got caught. He was like, are you fucking dumb? Don't you have plans before you make any decisions? Like, why would you get caught? How dumb are you to get caught? He was mad about that. I'm like, okay. And as for Kitty, her mental health started deteriorating as Jose being the unfaithful husband, with the strain of mistresses spreading all over from the East Coast to the West Coast. And on top of that, there were prostitution involved. So Kitty didn't really have a lot of friends. So she confided into alcohol and substance. And it got to the point, it was so serious that she would be end up in the hospital. One time, Kitty even told her cousin, she said, and I quote, I lost my hero. Now here's how I see Kitty. I think Kitty was a very obedient housewife who really loved Jose. Because with that tyrannical husband, it almost feels like, from the outside, it almost feels like you really don't have any choice but to stay. But I think the main reason why Kitty still wanted to be with Jose, like stay in that family, was because love. Kitty really loved him. Yeah, poor Kitty. Because I wouldn't tolerate that bullshit. On August 19th, 1989, the Menendez family went out for fishing because despite of it all, they were still a family. They wanted to spend some quality time together as a family. Little do Kitty and Jose know this would be the last time that they will ever spend time as a family together, because 2 days later, Jose and Kitty will be found dead in a very macabre way in the Beverly Hills mansion while watching TV. That night, Lyle and Eric just finished watching the movie Batman in the theater. They went back home only to find out their parents had been shot to death multiple times. Lyle dialed 911, crying hysterically and struggling to speak while waiting for the police to arrive. And Jose had been shot for 5 times. And the fatal shot was on the back of his head. His brain matters were all over the ceiling, on the windows. And Kitty had been shot for 10 times, and both the kneecaps were also shot. And it looks like Kitty was struggling to escape, but whoever did this showed no mercy. And the whole living room was a slaughterhouse. The great sofa and the carpet underneath it were drenched in blood. Initially, the police dismissed this double homicide as a gangland-style killing. They ruled out the possibility of robbery gone wrong because all the valuable items, they were still in the house. Nothing was missing. So they were just pursuing this line of investigation. But after 2 months, they began... I'm sorry to laugh, but the police were just dumb, okay? They began to suspect something was amiss. They were like, wait a minute, hold on. This is Beverly Hills. There's no gangs. Something was wrong. Yeah, something indeed. And as the time went on, evidence started trickling in because think about it. After Kitty and Jose's death, who's going to be the beneficiaries? Obviously the two brothers, right? Because apparently the two brothers inherited around $14 million. That includes all the assets combined. The money, the cars, the properties, the stock shares, and everything else. 14 millions. The police had also found out after Kitty and Jose's death, the two brothers had spent around $700,000, almost $1 million, in the span of 2 months. They were buying luxury cars, watches, all the expensive stuff, and they were seen wearing Rolex watches in their parents' funeral. Well, here's the thing. When you think about their net worth, it almost doesn't seem weird when they have Rolex, you know, because like they were rich. But it's a funeral. Like your parents just died. They also went on exotic vacations, going to basketball games with courtside ticket seats, and on top of all this, get this, Lyle bought a cafe. What is going on, Lyle? It's like, my parents just died. Let me buy a cafe. The logic just doesn't make any sense. Like, shit doesn't add up. Like, what is going on, Lyle? Now, listen. I do believe that everybody grieves differently. Some people might confide it into retail therapy just because spending money is very therapeutic. Especially when you have a lot of money, shit tons of money to burn. Okay, and there's another possibility why they don't look sad. These are just my opinions, my thoughts. They probably just refuse to show their emotions in public. Just because they don't sorrow, that doesn't mean they're not crying themselves to sleep every single night. We wouldn't know that. We were not there. Just because they spend a lot of money on superficial stuff, that doesn't mean they're the killer of their parents' murder. And not only that, the investigators started questioning their testimonials. On the night of their parents' death, the two brothers claimed seeing gun smoke in the air. Like, what are you talking about? The smoke would just disappear not long after the shots were fired. What do you mean you see the smoke in the air? That does not make any sense. And not only that, the police also found out that Eric had written a screenplay where the character had murdered his parents to claim the insurance money. That's sketchy. That's a little, not little, so weird. That is bizarre. What is going on? Right? Okay, that's the motive. But the puzzle is still missing. Where is that evidence? They need evidence. Okay, like that's not enough, you know? It wasn't until when the police found out that Lyle and Eric confessed it to their therapist of murdering their parents. After his parents' death, the guilt and fear were eating Eric up. He needed to express his feelings and talk to somebody, and obviously, he couldn't tell his friends. How can he tell his friends that he murdered his parents? That's insane. So he found a professional. He revealed everything to his therapist, Dr. Jerome. And he didn't tell the police because if he did that, that would be breaking the patient confidentiality laws. Then Lyle found out about this. Obviously, he was pissed. He was like, bro, what the fuck? 당신 미쳤어? 너 죽으래? Like, how can you running around and telling people our secrets? So he threatened to kill Dr. Jerome if he ever tells anybody about this. And by the way, at this point, I think the therapist could potentially report it to the police because he was threatened and his life was in danger. There are certain scenarios where the therapist could potentially tell the authorities. Let me give you A, B, C, D. Okay, let's just say, hypothetically, not real, okay? Hypothetically, let's just say if you killed somebody already and you confessed it everything to your therapist, they cannot tell the police. If they did, that's breaking the confidentiality law. They'll get punishment. They'll get disbarred. So, is it worth it? I don't know. And scenario B is if you had killed somebody and you confessed it everything to a therapist, but the guilt is eating you up, it's making you suicidal, that you wanted to kill yourself, harm yourself. In this case, your therapist is actually allowed to tell the police because they're preventing you from self-harming. They're preventing another tragic case to happen. And scenario C, let's just say if you had a plan that you're going to kill someone, you haven't killed them yet, you're going to do it. And by law, your therapist is allowed to tell the police because they're preventing another crime to happen. In scenario D, let's just say if you're going to kill somebody or if you already killed somebody, it really doesn't matter. But if you confess to everything, your plans or like how you kill that person to your therapist, if the victim is considered disabled, senior citizen, or kid, doesn't matter which one is it, okay? Doesn't matter if you already killed them or you're going to kill them, they can report it to the police. So these are the few scenarios in the United States, by the way. I'm not saying this is universal, okay? Now, however, Dr. Jerome didn't go to the police. He didn't say anything to the police. It was his mistress who reported to the police. So he started treating Lyle as well. And he even told his secretary, which was his mistress, he's like, if I ever died, Lyle was probably the one who killed me. So he started treating the two brothers and he started recording everything. And he would even ask the secretary to be outside, listening the whole thing. Then I don't know what happened to the secretary. Then she was like, beep beep, hello, please. And that is how the brothers got arrested. So Lyle was arrested on March 8th, 1990. So did Eric 3 days later. That's because Eric was in another country, and the minute he stepped his foot into the United States, bitch arrested. And just like that, they get arrested. So the truth is, on August 18th, 1989, the two brothers, they drove 100 miles away to a gun shop, and they purchased 2 shotguns with the stolen ID. And 2 days later, on the 20th, when Jose and Kitty, they were watching TV in the living room, the shots were fired. Jose got shot first. Then Kitty got shot multiple times, but they were not fatal. She was still crying and screaming and trying to crawl out of there. That's when Lyle went outside to his car and reloaded the gun. He went back and finished Kitty. And immediately after the killing, the brothers were just waiting for the police to arrive because shots were fired. Somebody gotta call the police, right? And surprisingly, bitch, no one called the police. And apparently, come to find out, all the neighbors, they all heard the gunshot, but nobody was bothered to call the police. They were like, this is Beverly Hills, the safest, richest neighborhood in the whole California. Like, what are you talking about? It's not like that. It's nothing like that. So nobody called the police. Yeah. Then Lyle picked up the phone, dialed 911, and he sounded distraught, frightened. He couldn't even get the words out. And throughout the years, people were just wondering, why did he cry when calling the 911, knowing he was the killer to the parents? Was it pure acting? Was that alligator's tears? Now, I have two, not speculations, but like 2 thoughts that I can think of on the top of my head. And the first theory that I can think of, which is the most obvious, they were just cold-blooded killers. Everything was an act because they didn't want to go to jail, so they put on a facade. And the second theory will be the two brothers killed their parents out of rage. And when the adrenaline dies down, all the emotions like agony, fury, grief, regret, all billowing back to them. And now they're at a stage of disbelief. They couldn't believe that the two dead bodies in that living room belonged to their parents, and they couldn't believe that they actually killed their parents. That's why they were sad. They were crying. That's just my thought. Okay. And by the time when the police had arrived, the two brothers told the police that they were at a food festival. They just finished watching the movie Batman, and they just got back only to find out their parents, oh fuck, dying in the living room. And they could have gotten arrested right there and there if the police had tested for gun residue, which they didn't. Because here's the thing, when the murder happens and the victim's loved ones will become the first suspect, right? But I guess when the two rich white kids from Beverly Hills called the police, they would just automatically get ruled out as suspects. And according to the police, and I quote, "Bitch, the Menendez brothers seemed very genuine." I don't even know what that means, okay? So that's why the police didn't even follow the protocol when they examined the crime scene. Now, normally the case would just end it here, right? But, we're talking about the infamous Menendez case, one of the most controversial cases in the world. Okay, there's so many twists and turns. On December 7th, 1992, the two brothers were indicted and tried for their first-degree murder. And upon learning, their parents' murder come after years and years of being emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. And one day, they finally snapped like twigs. So growing up, Jose would often physically abuse the brothers if they ever disappointed him. He would discipline them with his fists and beat them with his belt. He would even poke their thighs with pins and needles. And according to the brothers, Kitty also got beaten by him. Every time she was beaten, got slapped across the room, she would just drink more alcohol. And he would also take group showers with the boys after tennis, so that Kitty would just turn up the volume on the TV and pretend nothing had happened. Well, he dragged the boys to the room and shut the door. He will force the boys to be on their knee, then take off their clothes. Then he will perform fellatio and ask the boys to do the same for him. During the first trial, the Menendez brothers' lawyer presented an envelope. So on the top of the envelope, written in Kitty's handwritings, and it reads, Eric's 6th birthday. And inside of the envelope, it contains pictures. There were 2 pictures inside of this deck of photos, which appeared to be the Menendez brothers' naked body. And the angles on these 2 pictures were bizarre, in my opinion, because I'm pretty sure if you go dig up your family photo albums, and many of us probably have 1 or 2 pictures that were taken by our parents while taking the shower. You're probably smiling to the camera, making a V sign, there's probably foam on your nose. It's adorable, but these 2 pictures were nothing like that. So the pictures started from the neck below, all the way to the feet, which means there's no hat. And some people might argue, okay, what if it was the kids who were taking pictures for each other, and the lawyer actually presented the original film roll? So here's the thing. You can edit the timing and sequence of photos on your phones, but the same cannot be done to film rolls. Yes, you can probably cut them and glue them together, but that's not the case here. The images on the photos are arranged by time slots, right? And the first naked picture, which it was the second on the slot, and the one next to it, it was the third one, it was Eric sleeping. So if Eric was sleeping, how can Lyle take the picture by himself with 2 arms still in that frame? Now, in 1977, 7-year-old Eric was admitted to the ER, and there's a record from the following day from the Princeton Medical Center, and it said, heard posterior pharynx, uvula, soft palate, healing well, symptomatic treatment. And the doctor also testified at court. She said that these type of injuries were indications of oral complications in children. So that's why dentists nowadays, they're trained to look for these type of injuries to decipher whether the victims is being essayed or not. So a dentist can just take a look at your throat, then they would know, what did you do last night? And Lyle also claimed that Jose, he would put foreign objects like toothbrushes or shaving utensils inside of his body.
And what would he do with the toothbrush?
Well, in the bedroom, we'd have what we called object sessions, and just slide my pants down.
The brother's cousin Diane, she also came out and said when Lyle was 8 years old, he went to Diane and asked Diane if he can sleep with her because he was afraid his father is going to sleep with him and touch him down there. And Kitty heard about this as well, so she dragged Lyle back to the room and told him, do not tell anyone about this. The saddest part of the story is when Lyle said this, he thought he was taking one for the team so he can protect Eric until he found out that Jose was doing the same thing to Eric. Jose made him thought that the things they were doing happened to everyone. And Lyle believed that the son should do what the father says. That's how the father teaches his son and molds him. So that way he can grow up, do the same to his son. So Jose was just indoctrinate their kids. Everything we do is normal. Everybody does that. That is sick. That is repulsive. And obviously there are many more vivid details that they mentioned in the first trial, which I cannot talk about it because it gets very dark and graphic. But honestly, if you're interested, go look it up on the internet. I just feel like they were either the best actors in the world or they were the victims. Now, many people have wondered throughout the years if they hated Jose so much, it would only make sense for them to just kill Jose. Why killed Kitty? Why killed the mother? I'm gonna give you my takes on this. I guess they were mad. They were furious. Kitty, as a mother, as a protective figure, her job was supposed to protect the kids, but instead, every time she would just turn up the volume on the TV and pretend that nothing had happened. Negligence is more evil than abuse. If abuse is a cycle of violence, then negligence would be accepting that cycle of violence. And let me put it this way for you. If the kids are flowers, Jose being an evil insect, Kitty is the gardener, and the gardener's responsibility is supposed to take care of the plants and the flowers. She could have just eradicated the bug and let the flowers bloom, but instead, she just watched them die because she hated the flowers. She was a gardener that hated flowers. And here's a quote from Kitty that was included in the first trial but omitted in the second one. And I quote, "Never have children. I hate children. Children get in between a husband and his wife." Kitty also told Jose's sister that she wished the two brothers were never born. I guess she just hated the two brothers. I don't know for what reason. Was it out of jealousy? Was it because she thought the brothers had taken too much time from the dad? I don't know. And one time, Kitty's friend came over and asked her, "Hey, what are you doing?" So apparently she was changing her well in front of her. And her friend was like, "Don't say that. Lyle can hear you." Then Kitty said, "I don't care. I'm not gonna leave any money to him." There was plenty of evidence presented in the first trial. Eyewitnesses and psychiatric testimony, medical reports, photos, etc. The juries were trying to try them as second-degree murder or manslaughter, but couldn't reach the verdict. And at the second trial, most of the evidence was either blocked or severely limited to ensure a conviction. Both brothers' trials ended in mistrials in 1994. The following year, they went back for a retrial where videotaping was not allowed, and they both found guilty of first-degree murder. Then they got sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And both brothers, they were separated to different prisons for 22 years, and now they're finally together in the same prison. And they're both married, not to each other. That would be sick. To females, yeah. This is a tale of revenge, greed, and violence. It's a notorious case that remains a chilling reminder to this day. Now, whether you want to look the brothers as monsters or victims, it's completely up to you. Because justice is just like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. Some sees an innocent victim, others will see evil incarnate getting exactly what's deserved. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the sad story of the Menendez brothers. I would like to hear your opinions. What do you think about this case? Let me know in the comments, okay? And as always, be safe, be vigilant, and take care.